Welcome. I'm so glad you're joining me. For those of you who are just starting, the Orca Swim Show is a weekly show where I bring both information about how the brain works when embarking on change, especially something that is fearful, and we take it to the lab of the swimming pool. After 30 years of teaching in the pool, it's time to hop out of the water and share how the learning works in and out of the water in the same way. The water is a perfect lab to test the learning process because you get fast and immediate feedback along with very satisfying rewards. When you focus on the needs of the brain-body connection and not just a list of skills, then you can obtain lasting and satisfying results. Our pool is a warm 92. Let's hop in and go from regret and missing out to action and freedom.
Hi, Born Swimmers. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about the 10 different skill areas, 10 different things that you need to know about to be able to swim. So I'm going to give you the full enchilada here, the full picture, the fullness of what all goes into it. Not that I would expect you to be able to take this and go, oh, now I can just do it. But it gives you an idea of the fullness of areas for you to discover and play with. So if you've been playing with your swimming, working on your swimming, you can use this information to say, yeah, I need to delve into this area a little bit more. Or if you've been working on your swimming in a traditional swimming lesson context where they're having you do front crawl and you're feeling like, I don't get it. Why am I behind? Why don't I understand? Why do I feel like I'm missing something? It will be in these 10 steps that you'll want to look back and see, oh, do I know anything about these things? And if you don't, you got to fill these in or you'll be left in a space of confusion. So when we teach, we are really looking, going between all these different areas. So I wanted to give them to you. Now, the first few here, I'm going to go over it. They're really foundational things, and they're super important that goes into all the other areas. So without having some mastery in these first 4 areas, they will show up and hold you back in all the other areas. So the first one is presence of mind management, managing your thoughts, taking care of your brain. We know that at least 80% of what goes into learning to swim or swimming at every single level, beginning to advanced, has to do with your mind. Only like 20% has to do with physical skills. It might even be less than that. You cannot reach the physical skills. You can't find the physical skills. You can't connect to the physical skills without taking care of your mind, your thoughts, your being in the future, your being in the past, you being in confusion, being in upset, anxiety, all these things. This has to get taken care of first. This is the most important thing. Without knowing how to manage your mind, you cannot get on to the next steps. The second thing, number 2, is being able to feel. Now, 2 kinds of feel. There is emotion feel and there is physical feel. Both of these, you got to have both of these. I need to know what my emotions are, being honest and true with this. I might wish and hope it was something else. But it's not. It is what it is. And that's just fine. And physical feel, like, not I feel good because physical feel being, I can feel my arms. I can feel my toes. I can feel my shoulders contracted. I feel my eyes scrunched up tight. All of these things, emotion feel to physical feel. This is your inroad into what your thoughts are. Back to number 1, the mind management, taking care of your mind. Your thoughts are going to show up as feelings. And sometimes we don't know what our thoughts are because our brain likes to spin off in confusion, but it will always show up in feelings. And when we can be in touch with the feelings, and this is a good way to get in to understand where the mind is going, is to actually feel and notice what's happening. And when you talk about learning a physical skill, if you can't feel what your body is doing, what is happening, what is there, what are you in control of, what are you not in control of, you cannot adapt a skill. And this goes from, again, your very beginning, putting your face in the water and having comfort. You can't have comfort with your face in the water when your face is all scrunched up. But there's a reason your face is all scrunched up. We have to take care of that reason. Starts all the way from there to your very highest level. You know, our Olympic athlete has to be in touch with the way their bodies feel in the water, because this puts them in touch with how to change, how to adapt, how to manipulate, how to understand. Got to be connected to feel. The third foundational thing is fun or curiosity, interest. We have to bring this in to a learning process. If the learning process is always about pushing and forcing and doing it anyways, we will not have the presence of mind to really understand it. Having fun or being curious about something brings things in such that we know we are learning from it. You think about all the stuff that kids do under 5 that is entirely about what is fun. And they learn an entire language or 2. They learn how to manipulate their bodies in gravity, all the way from standing to walking to biking to jump roping to being able to do all these crazy things with their bodies, because they're simply having fun. They're discovering what the limits of their bodies are, what the limits and interest is of what they can manipulate and do in the world. This brings in so much information, and we just really know whenever we're having fun or we're following curiosity, the naturalness of this process is that there is learning. The fourth foundational thing is our face. Understanding what it means to have our face in the water. And I don't mean dunking your face in. Most people can just shove their face underwater. Some people can't. There's a lot of people out there at that too. Don't even like to put their face in the shower, right? Understanding what it means to have your face in the water is a really big deal. And it's such a big deal because it reaches our primal force, which is air. My face is in the water. Air is not available. And of course, this brings up worry and concern. And so we need to give ourselves time and space to really understand what having our face in the water feels like, to completely own it and reconcile all the feelings that we have with it, to be totally neutral about having our face in the water. And it is normal and understandable that it doesn't feel like a neutral thing to start with. How much time do you spend in your day having air being restricted? None, I would guess. I do more than the average Joe because I spend a lot of time in the water and I go underwater and I can't breathe when I'm under the water. It's not a big deal. I don't worry about it. But you have to give yourself space to understand this and to be completely neutral with your face. We see this time and time again when somebody is doing things and they seem to be progressing and they hit a wall, and we stop and we check and we look and we say, oh my goodness, we skipped complete comfort with the face. They hit it, they masked it, they were pretending to be totally comfortable with the face. So we take 2 minutes, maybe 10, to go back again and revisit the face in the water to bring that total comfort with face in the water. So those are the first 4 most important things. The other things, so then let's talk about the other things. So the next one, number 5, being under the water. Slightly different than just saying your face in the water. So being under the water, when we're fully submerged in the water, we're coming down to a place, we're coming down as low as we can go in the water, where we're no longer supporting ourselves with the floor. This is the place to discover. Now, for most people, there'll be some little piece of you that is still out of the water. The crown of your head, or the back of your head, or maybe the back of your shoulders if you're looking at the floor. Those very few of you, like Olympic swimmers, who would completely let go and they would be totally submerged. So there's no part of them out of the water. Now, for beginner swimmers, they don't know the difference between if I have my face in the water, they feel like they're completely submerged. So that you really need to know the difference. Am I completely submerged? Am I a mile under the water? Maybe, let's say 2 feet. Start in the 2 feet. But it feels like it's a mile. Am I 2 feet under the water, or am I 2 inches under the water? We don't really know these things. We feel that our feet are more than 2 feet under the water. And so our brain wants to say that our head is 2 feet under the water. But usually this isn't true. So we really need to understand what it means to be under the water. When you go under and you don't do anything to hold yourself up, you're not trying to put yourself at the surface, you're not trying to keep yourself off the bottom, you're just letting yourself be fully submerged. And this is an area we need to know about. We need to know what that is like when your eyes are cast down. You're looking at the bottom of the water. You're looking at the bottom of the pool. You're looking at the bottom of the beach, like the sand. So your face is looking down. We need to know what that's like when your face is looking forward. If you were looking at the side of the pool, underneath the water, the tiles. And you need to know what this is like when your face is looking up. You're looking at the ceiling. Lots of pools have flags that go over their pools. If you were looking straight up at the flags, what is it like to be completely under the water with your face in these different positions? The next thing is to understand movement. Oh, by the way, here's a sneaky little thing. On number 5, I was actually talking about floating. I didn't want to call it floating because when we call it floating, everybody thinks I got to be horizontal to the surface of the water. That's all I'm going to say about that one here. But it's really about just being under and feeling how it is under the water. Number 6, movement. How do I move in the water? Now, watch if your brain just jumped ahead to, I'm supposed to move in the water in this particular way. No, this is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, how do I move in the water? When I move something, what happens? Being present, going back to those foundational things, being present to be able to discover the fun, the curiosity. When I move, what happens? We don't want to start with, I need to move like this to make this happen. That will trip you up every single time. We have to go in that curiosity to say, when I'm totally under the water and I stick my hand out and I move my hand through the water, what happens? Well, some movement will happen. Let's get curious about that and understand that. So getting movement in there of knowing how your hands work to move you in a forward direction, or how your hands work to turn you, to do like a 90-degree turn or a U-turn, how to do a somersault or a handstand, how to go to the bottom and to the top. Our hands are a big driver for all of this, but it's not just our hands. Your torso changes your movement, your head position changes your movement and your direction. Understanding just movement. Think about kids who are in and just wiggling around their little bodies. And they may have the idea that it's going to take them in a certain direction, but they just say, I just need to move. And they figure it out. They start to understand, oh, this kinds of movement makes this predictable thing happen. We can't predict what's going to happen until we actually engage in it. So movement around. Here's a pro tip. For the most movement we get for the easiest bang for your buck is with your hands, not with your feet. I have another one that talks about feet, another YouTube episode that talks about feet. So you can go back and look that up if you want to know more about feet. But I wouldn't start here. Start with your hands. Understand how your hands work. They're much easier. All right, the seventh thing that we look to is being able to change positions, that you could go from your front to your back, or your back to your front, or you could go up and down. You could go from a vertical position to a horizontal position. Again, using our foundational things of presence, feeling, and fun and curiosity to play around with, how can I go between all of these different positions? Not making yourself wrong about it. If you get to from your front to your back, and you had a particular vision of how you thought it should work, but when you actually did it, you did it in a different way. That is great. You just want to figure out what works. I thought I was going to use this way to get over, but I used something else. All right, well, let me do more of that so I can understand. Let me do more of that so I can understand how that works and get mastery over what comes easily and naturally for me. Then I can start to lean into that other way that I thought I was going to use. Number 8, breathing. All right, this is the thing that everybody wants to know. Goes back to that piece of our face. Breathing, I don't want you to see in your head that in order to swim, I have to master the front crawl side breathing. That is a particular way to breathe, but it is not the easiest way. It's not the one that comes to us first. It's not the one that is intuitive and natural for people to do first. So if you have all your ducks lined up behind the idea that I have to do side breathing, and until I do the side breathing thing, I'm not actually swimming, I can't actually get air, it's going to make you feel stressed and worried and concerned, and notice all the feelings that go into saying, I have to master side breathing. You want to start with always trusting and listening to yourself around your breathing. Always make breathing easy. You have to be able to get air easily all the time, because you will feel at threat if you don't have that for yourself. And then you want to figure out ways that just work. Standing up works. Using the side works. Then you start to get things like rolling over works. Bobbing works. Popping up to breathe. These things need to come first before you get to this idea of doing a side breathing in a front crawl. Being really good in understanding the rolling to breathe and popping to breathe gives you the information you need about timing and presence for those things. A front crawl side breathing is basically a rolling to breathe. That is the information that's in there. It's just an extended, easier version of the side breathing. The side breathing comes from really understanding how to get air confidently and easily. All right, number 9. Number 9 is being off-centered. You have to have presence about falling or jumping, losing track of where you are in space, and not losing it, not losing your mind when you're discovering with this. If we are always saying, I have to be in this very rigid, very known, very prescribed way of being in the water, it adds this layer of tension and fear. What if I'm not that way? So we want to know on purpose, if I am in the water in a more unpredictable way, I can still be in charge of my mind. I am predictable there, that I don't have to lose it in the face of the unpredictability of this three-dimensional space, where gravity doesn't work the same because it has buoyancy affected in it. There is still gravity principles, but there's also buoyancy principles. You can fall in the water and you don't get hurt the way you do on land. But your mind is going to be screaming out something else and telling you a different story about it. So we need to be in charge of this mind to say, I can stay with being off balance. And then you get to know what being off balance is, and you don't resist it, and you don't have tension around it. And this ease of being in the water allows you to discover all the nuances of space that's available to you in the water. On land, there isn't that much space that's available to you in terms of before you hurt yourself. You pretty much have to be balanced over your feet. We exchange the balance from one foot to another when we walk, or when we jump, or we run. We're exchanging the balance point, but we're still really balancing over our foot somehow. In the water, there is many more positions that you get to be in, and you want to be able to discover all of those different positions. It's not just strictly front and strictly back or strictly vertical. There's a 360-degree space between all of those things. So you want to know what it's like to be off-centered. You don't have to hold a particular rigid way of being. Now, the last thing, number 10, is to love the deep. Does anybody go screaming away with that? We have to really reconcile our relationship with the deep, with being under the water. Again, going back to our foundational things, 1, 2, 3, 4, having the presence of mind in the deep, having fun and following curiosity with it, knowing what our face is doing under there, and being able to feel what is, not what we think is happening, not what we're worried about for the future or the past, but to feel what is. We have to understand how to get there, or how hard it is to get there. For the majority of people, the worry is that I'm going to be on the bottom and I'm never going to get up. And for the majority of people, they actually can't even do that. Their feet might be able to go to the bottom, and if they're in 5 feet of water, if they're in water that is shallower than how tall they are, their feet may be able to go down there, but their torso doesn't go down there. Their face doesn't go down there. They think it does because their feet go down, but not all of them gets down there. Now, there are a few people who really can go all the way down to the bottom. They could lay down on the bottom without doing anything. Our Olympic swimmers are like this. They just go down, and they go down and they love it. They can hang down there and be at home and be present and be calm and be curious about it and have fun with it. This is something you want to know. Am I an Olympic swimmer type body or am I not? And I want to be happy with whatever I am. I want to really get to know it and understand it. If have an Olympic swimmer body, then I want to be able to sit down at the bottom and have a smile on my face. Total presence there. Total calmness. So I can then feel that there is something I can use to come to the top when I want to come to the top. Because of course you are going to want to come to the top. We do need to exchange our air. This is truth. But when we're frantic and we cannot feel what there is to help us get to the top, this is what feels terrible. We want to be present. This way you can use the tools that are available. If we always go around saying, I have to do things to make sure I never get to the bottom, because if I get to the bottom, something terrible is going to happen. Your swimming is never going to feel totally yours. You're always going to be in resistance to something. So we need to reconcile that resistance. Now, I'm not saying go out to the pool and go to find a deep pool and go let yourself sink to the bottom of a 14-foot pool without knowing anything. No, you start in 2 feet and see what is it like to just lay on the bottom of the 2 feet. And how do I come to the top? And how do I know what's going on and be happy and curious and playful down there? And then you could go to 2.5 feet. This way you build up the information that you need and you build up the strength of your mind before you go to the 14-foot or 12-foot, or it's hard to find a 14-foot pool. You do it step by step. All right. So those are the 10 foundational things that we need to know before we go learning something like the crawl stroke and side breathing and breathing patterns, like breathe every 3 strokes or every 5 strokes or every time on your right side or something weird like that. Or fitness training. If you're learning to swim, is focused on those things, crawl stroke, side breathing, breathing patterns, fitness training, and it feels confusing or you're missing something, you got to go back into these foundational things and see, where do I need to expand on? What questions and curiosities do I have here? Do I have total mastery and ownership of all of these 10 areas? And especially the first 4. You're going to come back to those over and over again. All the rest of them are ways to discover and play with those first 4. All right, so some food for thought, things for you to work on, play with, have fun with, use your curiosity with. When you're ready to jump into the water with us, we'd be happy to be discovering all these things with you. All right, born swimmers, we'll see you at the pool.
Thanks for listening. Are you ready to take some action? 3 ways to the freeway. Subscribe, join a free webinar, get started online where we break down the steps, making them simple, and we support you along the journey. So maybe you'll join us in Hawaii. Jump on over to orcaswimschool.com.